Hello, and welcome to Powerful Parenting, a podcast for busy caregivers. My name is Jennifer Pitcher, and I'm the lower school director at Detroit Country Day School. One of my greatest joys as a school leader is working with and connecting with our parents. Strong parent partnerships are really a cornerstone of school success, and at DCDS, we are so pleased to form these partnerships and to learn from each other. My guest today is Lisa Mando, a board-certified behavior analyst and co-founder of Blooming Pathways Behavioral Consulting Services. Lisa works with children who are experiencing behavior challenges and helps them build essential skills in communication, social interactions, daily living tasks, self-regulation, and more, to empower families with practical strategies at home. An area we'll be discussing today is a common focus of Lisa's work, toilet training. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being here today. So how do you know if your child is ready for potty training, or is it really family readiness or parent readiness for potty training?
I would say it's both. So with child readiness, a few things that we like to look for would be imitation skills. Can they follow simple directions? Do they have interest in the bathroom? Are they able to recognize their body cues? So can they signal to you if they have gone pee or poop in their diaper or pull up? Will they walk over to the bathroom? So those are all basic skills I would say the child will start off with to show some of those readiness skills.
What do the imitation skills look like?
So it can vary as long as they're able to kind of imitate anything pretty basic. So whether that's even walking along with you, maybe from one room to the other in your house. Through play, are they able to imitate some skills through play? If you are washing your hands in the bathroom and they're following you along, will they just pretend to wipe their hands on the towel in the bathroom too?
Do you find that children with older siblings do better with those imitation skills, or are they ready a little sooner, or not always?
Sometimes, yeah. What happens is a lot of these skills come more natural to them, too, because they've seen them more.
That makes
and
sense.
They're not the first one being exposed to it, too.
Sure.
And they love following their little siblings or their older siblings around, too.
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet. What about family readiness?
So that's a big one.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So a lot of times when thinking about toilet training, it's really emphasized on child readiness, but we like to look at family readiness as a whole. And that's because with family readiness, for example, it takes a lot of commitment and consistency when beginning toilet training. So the child is really there to show those readiness skills, but then the family provides that structure and consistency to the whole process. And
That's got to be key in this process, right?
It is, and that's where you start seeing the most success with it.
Mm-hmm. So toilet training can be exhausting. It's been a long time since I had to toilet train my own daughter, but it is tiring.
Yeah.
But we often see these quick, easy, sometimes unrealistic hacks on social media. And that seems like that would cause parents to think, oh, this must be easy. Do you hear that from parents?
We do. So there are a lot of methods available right now on social media, online in general, and I think they really are great. So parents having all of these resources, I would like to look at them more, though, as a stepping stone or baseline when kind of taking a look at these. And that's because every child really is different. So with these methods, parents at times have expectations set that this will happen overnight or on their weekend before maybe going back to work on a Monday. And when that doesn't happen, it becomes a little frustrating, or they may feel disappointed in themselves or even their child on what they did wrong implementing this or what their child is doing wrong. But that's not the case, right? You're asking the child to do a lot during this process. So I always like to ask parents, let's define what toilet training is. So what I like to look at when I'm defining toilet training would be step one, your child being able to void in the toilet, right? So that's a huge part of it. After they do that, they will be able to self-initiate, hopefully. So that takes another skill in itself. Now you're letting someone know that you have to go to the bathroom. After that, you would be able to go in public. So are you able to go in different settings or with multiple individuals? That takes another skill, right?
Oh, a
So
completely different set of skills, right?
yeah.
Than doing that at home.
And now we're at 3. So then the next part would be all of the skills related to the toilet after they actually go now. So pulling up their underwear, pulling up their bottoms, wiping, if that's
Yeah,
something that they need to do, of
I
course.
hope so. Yep.
Exactly. And then flushing the toilet, washing your hands. And if you think about it, washing hands alone requires multiple steps. So if you think of all these steps as a whole, to expect that this will be done overnight or over a weekend, it might not be the case. And some kids do, but if you're taking longer with it, that's very normal. So don't be hard on yourself during this
I think
process.
those are really good points, Lisa, because sometimes parents put pressure on themselves. And when you really lay it out like that and all the steps that it really takes to become potty trained,
Yeah,
that's a lot.
it
That is a
is.
lot. So I had a parent drop in yesterday and we were having these great conversations about all sorts of things. You know how much I love working with parents.
Yeah.
And so I threw out the subject of potty training. I said, hey, we know we're going to be recording a podcast tomorrow. And so how did it go for all of you? And it was all over the map. And one mom did say, my child was totally ready. And so we did that 3-day thing where we covered everything in tarp and let her run around naked.
Yeah.
And she was potty trained by the end of the weekend. And that worked for her.
Yeah.
But then the other stories started. And one mom who has 3 boys said, oh, I couldn't really wait for my oldest son's complete readiness because he might never be ready. I was ready for him to try potty training. And that worked for her because she knew it was time for him to get started with it and he wasn't ready. But then the younger one was more, or one of the younger ones was ready to just kind of jump in. I think maybe some of that imitation, right, came into play. And then some of the other parents had something in between. And I shared with them, my daughter will love this one, right? But when I thought, well, maybe it's time for her to become potty trained, we got a potty seat. And she sat right down on it and peed. And I was so excited. And I thought, well, that's it. She's potty trained. I have an only child, right?
Yeah.
That's it. This is great. We're done. Well, of course, that was just happenstance. And so, and one of the other parents said, oh, yeah, that happened to us too. And we had to start all over again. So I think what you're describing is truly a range of expectations, right? So you probably in your practice see a lot of those different strategies and approaches. So is it better to have a lot of different resources when you're approaching something like toilet training?
The resources, like I said, they're great, but just make sure that you take them as a baseline level and then from there really tailor them to your child. So
I love that.
every child is unique. So read through it and see, would this work with my child? Is my child even there at this point to complete this? To elaborate further on that. So with the step of following simple instructions. So we always say, is the child able to transition maybe from preferred to non-preferred activities?
Oh, yeah.
Is that a skill that they have? If they still are working on that, or that's a little tough area right now, it could be hard to start transitioning to the bathroom then. So maybe even working on those skills first, practicing them in the natural environment at home so that you're able to be able to do those while transitioning over to the potty where you're not necessarily working on the transition itself, but the actual toilet training too.
Lisa, that's brilliant. And I think that idea of transitioning from non-preferred to preferred or the other way around, to be able to kind of code shift between those tasks. Can you tell us what that looks like in a young child?
Yeah. So if they're engaging in something that's highly preferred, so maybe they really love their magnet tiles, for example, and then you just let them know, all right, time to get up and maybe eat dinner, time to go potty if you're toilet training. Sometimes some children do have the ability to just set down their items and then walk over. A lot of times, though, with this age specifically, and it happens to align with toilet training ages too, they do struggle with that. So maybe providing those verbal reminders, having a set schedule of maybe that window of the day or time of the day to let them know what to expect. That can really help too. So setting them up for success before kind of just starting this without a plan. That's why having that plan is very helpful.
I think that marker that you describe in terms of readiness is really key.
Yeah.
It's probably key to all sorts of expectations that we have of young children.
Absolutely.
And two, I think you're encouraging parents not to be so hard on themselves if it's not going well, because maybe that readiness isn't there at that point.
Exactly. Keeping an open mind with it is so helpful. And then having a minimal timeline with this process, I think will really help everyone out, the child and the parent too, because if you have it set in your mind, I am going to be done with this by Monday. If you started it maybe on Friday and that doesn't happen, that's going to maybe cause you to feel a little heightened. And then the child sees that and they're probably going to reciprocate the same emotion too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what other toileting issues do you hear about from parents? I'm sure they bring other issues to the table.
Yeah, so it really depends. So a lot of times if the child is struggling maybe with constipation, so medical issues, that's a huge one. We always say to consult with your medical professional to make sure that intervention is kind of put in place, and then you can start from a behavior standpoint after.
So always rule out anything medical. Okay.
Yeah. A lot of times UTIs can play a factor in this. Pain associated ends up resulting in some anxiety or fear related to the toilet. Constipation can do the same thing too.
Okay.
So some parents will see some challenges after that happens. Withholding. So a lot of times we'll come across some challenges. My child's just withholding, or they're going through a regression. That's one too. I know you mentioned with Catherine, you were so excited with that first void and then maybe had some hiccups after, and you probably wondered, why is she withholding now? Or why is maybe if a regression happened, you always like to assess and see why. So taking a step back and then going from there. Another thing too that's really common that I don't think is given enough attention, the duration. So setting a proper duration for your child.
Duration on the potty, you mean?
Nope. So what I see online a lot, in a lot of these methods too that we see, is they say take off your child's pants, for example, or diapers or pull-ups, and just take them every 5 to 10 minutes.
Oh, okay.
So the parent is doing that. They see some successes the first few times maybe, and then all of a sudden the child is screaming during that next transition, pushing or saying, I don't want to go. It becomes a little aversive.
Oh, that's where that 3-day hack could be a problem.
Yeah, and a lot of these
right?
overnight fixes are the hacks that we mentioned. So what we like to do is, from a baseline level, take a step back and see, how long is my child even able to stay dry for? So if you know that your child can stay dry for an hour and 30 minutes, for example, going every 10 minutes probably won't help or be beneficial, because they're wondering, why are we going? And you're not allowing them to have those body cues and sensations now of going potty. So instead, take it a step back and then do an hour in maybe an hour and 15 minutes. Meeting them right before they need to go to really feel those sensations. And you should see more success that way too, and positive associations to the toilet.
So you're saying if you're pushing it a little too often and they don't need to, that it may just put back the whole process, because then they're going to become adversive to, hopping on that potty one more time.
Yeah, and if they need it, so everyone's different. Some children do display accidents every 20 minutes. So in that case, going every 15 would be very helpful.
Okay, so it's tailor-made to your child. That makes sense.
Yeah, but if you're at a point in your toilet training process where you can hit about an hour, then there's no really need to go every 20 minutes or so. Just do about 15 minutes before, so every 45 minutes.
One of the parents in the conversation yesterday said, my kids are potty trained, but to be honest, I could use some help with nighttime, because sometimes we're still having issues at night. And she asked me, is that normal? which I think it probably is, right? Do you see that as well, Lisa?
Yeah, so nighttime, there are a lot of kind of pieces of research with that one. So it's really up to the family again and their readiness. So you can begin nighttime training while you're doing the daytime training. However, it could be a little tough on everybody, kind of starting strong like that. So what we do with families is we recommend that daytime training first.
Okay.
And then if you feel comfortable after they're successfully toilet trained, so by successful, I mean independent in all of those areas that we listed and talked about, then you can look into nighttime training. However, something that we always do recommend, you don't have to do that right now or at the same time. It's okay for them to be in that pull-up or diaper at night. Eventually, their body does get it. So something that could be helpful is remembering if they're dry for 7 consecutive nights, you're good to go to remove that pull-up most of the time.
Oh, that's good to know.
That's a good rule that we like to keep too.
What about a child who's potty trained and then, or we think they're potty trained during the day, and then they have an accident? Is that cause for alarm?
No, accidents are good. And that's something that we always talk about too with families. Accidents are your data, accidents are information, and then accidents help with body cues. Without those, the child won't really understand that success with toilet training itself. So it's really important to keep a neutral expression when that happens. So maybe avoiding any shaming or frustration of having to clean up that mess. If you want, you can include them in wiping down maybe some of that mess and washing hands after, more so for practice, but not in any kind of punishment type of way.
Sure.
It happens, right? And they're learning something huge. It's a new milestone that they're meeting. And the more accidents they have, they probably won't like it as long as they're not in pull-ups or diapers. And they'll hopefully have a decrease of them in the future.
So when do you recommend that they start underwear?
So this one's a popular question. It really depends. You can go full force and just remove the underwear, like the family that you had mentioned.
And it worked for them.
It does. Yeah. And you can do that too. I did that with my own daughter as well. But it's because I noticed that she was ready beforehand. So that was something that we were able to do. If you are doing that, this is where family readiness comes in again. You have to make sure that there are not many commitments on your calendar during this time frame.
Good point.
No big changes or big transitions. Make sure you can fully commit to this, because if you do that for a few days and then put the pull-ups back on because there are a few things on the schedule and then go back to toilet training, that's where those hiccups start to come in.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
So how about if you give some parents some quick tips? So what would you suggest? Just right out of the chute, Lisa, here's some quick tips. If you were at that coffee yesterday, what would you say?
Yeah, I have a few. So the first one would be have a plan. So when you're getting all of these resources online, or you are reading all of these great books or listening to podcasts, right? Take all of this information and knowledge, because it really is helpful, and create a plan for your child. So it's not a one-size-fits-all method. Your child is unique. Even use your notes app or write down how you're going to approach this. It will help you too. So visual supports help children, and I would say writing things down or having a plan for us is great too. So avoiding those busy times and life changes. The next thing would be letting your child lead. So each child, like we said, is different and the support they require. So again, if you're still at a point where you're working on those transitions, then maybe work on those before you begin the actual toilet training part. If your child is struggling with some medical things right now, like the chronic constipation or maybe a UTI, let's get that figured out first before we start.
That makes sense.
The next thing that's really important in all of these methods that we find online, this is really at the end of the day what they're summarizing.
Okay.
Consistency and motivation. The child needs motivation to do this, unless they're really motivated by the toilet. Maybe they are.
Is that rare?
I haven't seen it, but some children could love maybe the sound of flushing, although sometimes I hear the opposite. But the motivation here is a huge factor. So using that first then language will really be helpful in replacement of any bribery. We want long-lasting outcomes with this. So
That was my next question. What about that bribery?
yeah, so there's something kind of in the behavior world. It's called the PREMAC principle, which is widely used, called first. You're using basically first then. So with first, you would present the demand. So maybe first walk to the toilet or sit on the potty. Then you can have this. So after the child meets that demand, then they can have the preferred item. And make sure your child is motivated by what you're working for. A lot of times, something as simple as a hug is really helpful after.
Who doesn't love a hug, right?
Exactly. Stickers, something to keep in mind with this reinforcer is it's available to give kind of immediately. So a reinforcer.
Immediate reward, right?
Yeah.
So reinforcement.
Exactly. A reinforcer is effective if it's given 3 to 5 minutes after the desired behavior is displayed.
So not we're going to Target.
No, and you can fade that later on.
Sure.
So eventually you're going to get to a point you're going to be able to fade that reinforcer where you can work on it. If you're going potty all week, maybe Saturday morning we can go on a Target run.
There you go. I love it.
Yeah. So make sure it's something immediate. You can do even a fun potty box where your child can pick something out after to keep things novel and exciting too. So that's huge, a huge tip that I have with that. So it really drives your toilet training, your reinforcer.
Great.
Another thing that we kind of touched base on, accidents are your data. Like I said, it's information. It doesn't mean failure. So look at it like you're understanding their body cues. It can give you more information on timing. So timing of when to go. And then the last thing that I have is co-regulation. I know a lot of parents, especially with social media, there are so many things right now going around with our parenting approaches or what we're all doing as caregivers too. Co-regulation for this part is huge. Our children model our behaviors. So the way that we respond to this process, you will see your child responding in a similar way. So just keep it fun as much as you can. Of course, it's frustrating and tough, but you're really doing the best you can, and so is your child too.
I appreciate that and taking the pressure off a little bit, which is great.
Yep.
Thank you so much for your helpful advice, Lisa. It's been great having you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. It's nice to have you here to join us with such wonderful tips and advice for this important milestone in your child's life.
Yeah, it's really great, and it will be over. It's not something they're doing forever, so.
Thank goodness, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. On behalf of everyone at Detroit Country Day School, thank you for listening to the Powerful Parenting Podcast, powered by the studios at DCDS. If you enjoyed our time together, please like, share, and subscribe. For more episodes, you can find us on all the popular podcast sites. For more information about Detroit Country Day Lower School, please visit the dcds.edu website. In the meantime, this is your host, Jennifer Pitcher, reminding you that parenting isn't perfect. It's powerful. Keep going.